All right, the way the consensus goes on handing out vaccines when they become available in this country, and that could be just a matter of days, is, healthcare workers, those in nursing homes, the elderly, vulnerable population. But rarely do you hear talk of including in that list professional or up-and-coming athletes. But there is a strategy to that maybe such athletes could convince people to take the vaccine when so many are reluctant to deal with vaccines at all. Doug Eldridge, of the DLE agency founder, the sports agent, on the significance of all of that. What do you make of this, Doug? What can you tell us?
Well, sir, from 50,000 feet, I think it makes a lot of sense. As you and I have discussed in the past, athletes have never had a bigger platform or pedestal and with it reach than they do today. And we've certainly seen that on full display in 2020. But I think as you move forward, there might be one vaccine for the pandemic, but there's not going to be one VIP in terms of winning the war on perception, because this really is, when you talk about the doubt and the skepticism and the speculation around the vaccine, you're not talking about a demographic battle. You're talking about psychographics. It's not age, gender, ethnicity. You're talking about values, point of view, hopes, and fears. And in that regard, it's going to take a lot more persuasion and tactical implementation to convert the masses that are hesitant. I do think athletes have a huge foothold in that space because of their role in mainstream culture today.
You know, I was thinking of athletes who played prominent roles during wartime. Joe Louis, for example, during World War II. Not that he was in harm's way, but he was reminding people of the importance of the fight, the battle against the Nazis, what have you. So they can rally a nation, but this is a different bird, isn't it? I mean, to get people rallied around vaccines when so many of them, way prior to the pandemic, had concerns about them, period. And no one wants to be first in line.
You're absolutely right. And interesting conversation. I mean, I've been fortunate to work with athletes from Manhattan to Mississippi. And there's a certain consistency, and you just alluded to it, cultural lingering fears and speculation, and quite often it falls in the African-American community. Just 2 weeks ago, Dave Chappelle, the famous comedian, joined Joe Rogan's podcast, #1 podcaster in the world. And they had a real frank conversation about the election, about the pandemic, and then about the vaccine. And Chappelle talked about the skepticism in the African-American community across the country. And it was a really great conversation. I mentioned that for two reasons. Number one, Neil, that video on YouTube has now been viewed 7.6 million times. So right there, Rogan and Chappelle are two guys, along with the athletes LeBron, Tiger, Serena, and the like. Those are two guys that have great reach. But number two, I think it really underscores what you referenced, and that is the deep-seated concern and skepticism surrounding the vaccine, which long preceded COVID and the pandemic and the forthcoming vaccine, just vaccines in general. So when I talk about combating this from a psychographic standpoint, what you're really combating in the PR sense are these deep-seated fears. And in that regard, when you find these would-be endorsers of the vaccine, you're really going toward those with a Q score that lean toward trust and credibility. It's the old conventional, would I trust them to watch my child when I went out to run some errands, that type of thing. And there really are quite a broad offering of athletes and entertainers and personalities that could really fit the bill.
Speaking of COVID in general, it's really messed up the college season, hasn't it? I mean, there's some schools had a late start, others were handicapped by getting, players and others who were affected and tested positive of the virus itself. Between the college players and the professionals, I mean, will we get through all of this?
Sir, I think at this point we will, right? We're a week into December, but that seems like a coin toss at midfield, pardon the pun, which is to say it's 50-50. The FCS level was canceled in its entirety. The FBS is playing, but it's been start, stop, start, stop. The Big Ten started 6 weeks late. Clemson and the number one player in the country, Trevor Lawrence, tested positive. They came to a grinding halt, at least in terms of their progression. The Pac-12 started late. It's not like any season we've ever seen. But that's true across the board, from small business to stadiums alike. Everybody's been affected. So we're really kind of feeling our way in the dark and hoping we make it to the kitchen without knocking over too many things, if that makes sense.
Doug, I just wanted to hear again, since my son goes to Clemson, you did say it's inarguable that they have the #1 rated football team in the planet, right? I mean, I did get that right?
I want to go on the record affirming that point, Mr. Cavuto. They do, in fact, have
very
the
good.
#1 team, without question, from coaching to talent on the field on both sides of the ball.
You are the best, my friend, and a great sense of humor as well. Encyclopedic mind for all things sports. Doug Eldridge, a DLE agency founder, sports agent. Now, I know there are other college football fans out there who say they're better than Clemson. All right, well, give me your proof. We'll have more after this.
Because I'm happy. Clap along.